Hello, my friends, and welcome back. As you probably already know, the Azovstal saga ended to a certain extent, and another saga started. And that is, they were out, they surrendered, wounded soldiers were taken care of in a good way, and the other ones were transported to the Russian controlled area for guess what? For some vetting. So they're gonna see who's who, what's what. And I don't have to go into that, how that's done. Probably you will have information on that. Nevertheless, you're stripped and looked at, asked, and a little bit here and there, a little bit of a massage, left and right, if you know what I mean, to provide an incentive to speak. And and then, what do you think is going to happen with these guys? They think that they will be exchanged, right, with other prisoners. Probably some of them will be, but how about some that are deemed, I don't know, belonging to some ideology from 1933 to 1945, or some mercenaries? So they will be receiving a different treatment. I'm 100% certain. The problem is who is going to determine who's who and what's what, because they can determine every little guy that fought and stayed in the Azovstal plant and refused to surrender for various reasons, orders, not orders, whatever. They could be deemed as being part of that organization or have the same ideology. Who's to say no? And there's war. It's a lot of hatred, and certain things could be, stretched. Certain things could be hidden. Now let's go here to this article. This comes from Republic World from today, May 17th, 2022, by Aporva Kaul. And this is the title. Russian Parliament, which is the Duma, I'm assuming, mulls over presenting draft resolution to ban exchange of Nazi criminals. So they can say, all of you are, we're not going to be exchanging you. So maybe they deem Lavrov as being one of them and keep him over there in a certain group. So amid the Moscow-Kiev war, the Russian State Duma has been intending to introduce a draft resolution to impose a ban on the exchange of, and I'm quoting, Nazi criminals. End of quote. Well, that's going to be on Wednesday, May 18, tomorrow. The proposal presented by Andrei Kartapolov, head of the State Duma Defense Committee, has been supported by the deputies. Reported RIA Novosti. Addressing a plenary session on May 17th, State Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin asserted that they should not exchange Nazi criminals. And then he said that the Nazi criminals are war criminals, and they were making every effort to ensure that they are held accountable. So they don't want to, he said that the Nazi criminals, war criminals, they will make every effort to ensure that they are held accountable as per the news report. Well, okay. He called it, and I'm quoting, a right proposal, end quote, and stressed that their country is making efforts to ensure that injured prisoners of war get humane treatment. TASS reported. He accused Russian troops of committing cruelty and torturing the Russian prisoners of war. I think it's the other way around. He accused the Ukrainian troops of committing cruelty and torturing the Russian prisoners of war, since this is the speaker Vyacheslav Volodin. So he said that State Duma deputy calls for maximum sentence for nationalists in Azovstal. Now, I don't know about nationalists. Just because you're a nationalist, I don't see that that's a crime unless you act upon certain, but They vote. They are the elected officials of the Russian people. What do you want? Democracy, freedom, justice. All right. The State Duma deputy Sultan Kamazaev told RIA Novosti that the nationalists who had taken refuge in the Azovstal steel plant and surrounded should be given the maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The Russian Defense Ministry on May 17 said that 265 militants, that's in quotation marks, including 51 seriously wounded, had surrendered at Azovstal, and those who required treatment were shifted to the Novoazovsk, probably that's New Azov, hospital in Donetsk People's Republic. Kamzayev stressed that all nationalists, in quotation marks, after undergoing treatment, you know what treatment is, must be convicted of the crimes they have committed, if they committed crimes, right? He emphasized that the nationalists need to be brought to justice, after which they regret their work. What does it mean, they regret? They make them drag or in front of everybody else or march in on the street of Moscow like they had the German army do, the prisoners of war. After the Second World War, the Soviets, after they rounded up some millions of people, they got the armies, they got the German army, the prisoners, they had them walk through Moscow, and then they came with the machines and they washed the streets because the Nazis got their streets dirty by walking through. And they said, you want to see Moscow? Here it is. All right, well, is that going to be here, the regret their work, or is it going to be a different kind of regret? You know, he said that no work is being carried out to cancel the crimes committed by the criminals of Azov National Regiment. It is pertinent to note here that Russia launched a military blah blah blah. We know that the thing is not about this one. They always remind us at the end that, you know, even if they catch, let's say, even if the Russians listen, this is an observation. It's a pattern. That's why I just mentioned it here. I noticed that most of the time, after an article where you have, let's say, the Russians expose war crimes from whatever, or they expose this, it's something that the Russians come and that should be condemned. At the end is the damage control paragraph or paragraphs where they start saying that, oh, actually, all that, you should forget about it, and they leave you with a certain kind of note in your brain that, hey, actually, this is their fault, and they're the bad dudes, and that's it. Which could be, you know, but the article was not about that. But just read articles regarding this kind of events, and you'll find out that at the end is the disclaimer, 2 or 3, as I said, paragraphs where the author lets you know and lets you with the last thought being this kind of thought. Forget about that one. That's a psychological thing. For instance, when you watch news, why do you think the news are just about 7 seconds? Bam, 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 because your memory is able to retrieve it. But then after 7 seconds, they switch it to another one and another one, another one. So you can't go back and say, hey, what were the first 3 news that these guys are just vomiting here? And say, let me think about them. They just give it to you as a fact. And then you say, hey, let me do some research on my own. And when you do some research, then you find out those were a little bit like stretched. But when they just, you know, come with a fast repetition, enumeration, pam, 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 your mind gets it, your memory, especially if it's repeated many times, obviously, then your brain gets it and you don't have time to analyze and say, hey, just a minute. Was the first piece of news true? And if it was, what were the evidence you provided? They don't provide. They just bam, 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 and jump from one to another that you forget the first one, the second one, the third one, and you remain with the last one. Just observe that. It's just observation. And that's it. So yeah, whoever committed crimes should be charged, convicted, and punished, obviously. The problem here is this is war, and these guys have they don't like one another after this war. Obviously, they were enemies, right? They are, still are. So I think they could stretch the definition of Nazi. They can stretch the definition of nationalist. There's nothing wrong with being a nationalist. It's just a problem, as I said. What do you do? And even if you do certain things, it's like analyze my crime, okay? So we'll see. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Those guys in Azovstal plant, I don't see a bright future for them, and I'm waiting to see who else was over there besides the Ukrainians. So stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. See ya.